If you were building a defense for the 2025 Dallas Cowboys season, what would you emphasize? And then how would you use Micah Parsons? Two of the biggest questions about the Dallas Cowboys defense as we sit 5 weeks from Oxnard. Welcome into How About Wow, home of the best Cowboy debates. I am Gavin Dawson from 105.3 The Fan, and joining me as always is my man New Bear. How the heck are you, buddy?
Feeling good. Looking almost good as you. I love it when you get faded.
Oh yeah, that is fun. It was haircut time over the weekend. Had a big event to get to, so we went to the fancy barber. Hey, Cowboys' new defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus had a heck of an interview with our friends from the Doomsday Podcast, and we have some great highlights to look into and to sort of set the agenda for our discussion this evening on How About Wow. And we're going to start right here on his emphasis and what he is going to prioritize here for your 2025 Cowboys.
And that's what I took from Coach Marinelli when I was here with him. Took it on to Indianapolis and then up to Chicago. But it's been really good, and the guys love playing in the system because it really maximizes their talents and helps them really produce on the football field.
And the emphasis is on stopping the run and taking the ball away?
That's it. Yep. We got two things that we do. We stop the run and take the ball away. We like to score on defense, but that's really what our mantra's been, and that's what it continues to be.
He's had a lot of success doing that, New Bear, but let me ask you this. Is that the right two things to prioritize in an era of NFL football that's become so important to limit the big plays?
Well, you're not going to stop the pass. You're not going to play Joe Burrow with everything on the line and have him come out and throw for 90 yards and win a game that way. It's just not going to happen. The whole principality of this is about trying to make a team one-dimensional and what you can take away, what you can dictate, not just the end result, the counting stats, but the personnel packages, the down and distance, the play-to-play data points that give you the ability. What Eberflus wants is his guys with their eyes on the ball. He wants really disciplined dudes who are where they're supposed to be, who are looking at the ball so that they're reading tendencies and making educated guesses so that when they're taking chances, it's built on the instinct that's honed from a place of educated guesses so that they can take one back the other way, flip the field, take it to the house, put you up 2 scores, where now the game script completely changes for everyone else.
I think especially for this team that is so rich with pass rushers and when healthy, hopefully some corners if, Ravel and Diggs can join the party. They should have some nice corners. I feel like you are going to get pressure and take the ball away. If you can put your emphasis on guys, when they run, let's not get gashed for 6 yards. If you can accomplish that as a team, I think this squad could be set up for big time success because they're going to take the ball away as well when they're healthy.
Yeah, and again, there's an aggressiveness to it, right? So I'm talking about dictating terms. Where does that come from? And some people might be reluctant to want to talk about him having eyes on the ball and guys being disciplined and being where they're supposed to be and like the fundamentals, the P's and Q's of doing what they do. But what comes with that is being able to say, this is how we're going to attack you. There's an aggressive element about allowing your guys to go hunt, right? To play on instinct, not thinking, reacting, right? Not reading and reacting, but just reacting. Like, here is my assignment. If this happens, then I do this because of it. And I think because they have so much team speed and they have so much length and disruptive dudes, right? We talked a couple weeks ago about how, Deron Bland sets that record and has all those pick sixes, but he also gives up 766 yards, right? Like, you're going to give up plays. The Bill Belichick bend but don't break and hope that they throttle down in the red zone and you force field goals. That's different when you have a team that's as explosive as GP and CD and all these other components that go around them. And you want to try to jump out on some of these people and spend the rest of the day hunting.
Yeah, you do. And this team is going to do that. But I think the tag or the label is out on them. And it's why they were so vulnerable last year is you definitely want to stay away from their pass rushers. So if there's any way you can do a good running game, you can destroy the Cowboys and have your quarterback pass 15 or 20 times and have success. So how do you mitigate that while also playing to your strengths, I think is a huge priority. I love how Flus throughout several times in this interview, New Bear, talked about attention to detail and developing guys, and it's going to be incumbent on his coaching staff of, not only getting your bodies right, and he did talk about conditioning. You can tell he doesn't think this team is in good enough shape to play, the style that he wants to play. And, I think when you go there, along with what Brian Schottenheimer has been talking about, you're talking about trying to tailor make your strengths and your endurance levels to a playing style that is specifically going to give your team an identity. And I think that's desperately what this team needs here. Is they're on their third defensive coordinator, but I think this might be the best. Like when they lost Eberflus 7 or 8 years ago, I remember how many people around the building said, we lost a rising coaching star. And sure enough, he was. I just don't know if head coaching was ultimately the best use of his skills.
Can we do one thing real quick? Can we just let the people know who may not know that the situation he inherited in Chicago was arguably the worst salary cap, the worst draft pick situation, and the worst roster in football. He goes into that with no first round pick, right? Because of the move to get Fields. He goes into that with something like 40% of the cap in dead money and like $90 million in true dead money on a $210 million cap. And oh, by the way, your leading receiver is Darnell Mooney and a young Cole Kmet, and then nobody else without dudes up front to play. David Montgomery is a nice piece, but that was it. And on top of that, like they were so bad to begin with that Justin Fields had a year where he won 3 games. Went 3-12 as a starter and finished 9th in MVP voting. There was nothing there. They trade Roquan Smith midway through the season. You got stars like all pros like Eddie Jackson and others getting hurt, and then they missed. They had some really bad draft picks early in his tenure, and the situation was set up for him to do exactly what he did, which was fail in spectacular fashion.
As it always ends in Chicago, I think at some point it gets toxic, but I think an objective review of his situation was he joined a dumpster fire. He was making it better, but there were still growing pains, and losing breeds more toxicity. But I think if he would have stayed in Chicago, there's a chance they would have found success ultimately with them. But I think ultimately right now it's a tremendous blessing for the Cowboys that he did get fired and he's back.
Well,
because
he's a hell of a DC. You can't argue that. Some people just aren't meant to be CEOs, right? Like whatever field you're in, if you're a marketing director, creative director, sometimes you're just a better copywriter or strategist. Like whatever it is you do, sometimes you're just not meant to be management, right? And there's no question that everywhere he's been, at every level that he's been at, college, pro, DC, linebacker coach, everywhere he's been and everything he's done has been better and has been better immediately.
Next talking point from Cowboys defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus here with your guys Ed Werder and Matt Mosley. Salute to those dudes. Great interview, great podcast, Doomsday. But here he is talking about Micah Parsons. What's the best way to use one of the best edges in the NFL? Here's Flus.
A little bit. We had a meeting. Him and I had about a half-hour meeting, yesterday on that very subject. Him and I in my office, and for him, you have to move this guy around. Now, what's great about our current roster is that we have other rushers now that can rush. So to pay attention to one particular rusher is going to be more difficult than if you just had one on one side. So that's going to be a good thing too. So we'll have to we can do less of that. So,
and he told me once that he actually thinks his biggest mismatch is rushing inside over the guards and the centers. I assume you'll have that in your repertoire.
Sure. Oh yeah, we'll move him along the line. And Coach Whitecotton, Aaron Whitecotton's our D-line coach and has done a remarkable job here in this offseason, really. And so have all of our coaches. We talk about development players.
See, there's more of that development stuff, which I absolutely love. That gives you, an idea. Going to move him around quite a bit. I don't think you'd ever want to, but he talked about something that's very important that's different from the last time he was here, New Bear. Last time he was here, he had like Tank. Hey, we have one pass rusher, and they were trying to find it. He would talk about, we need it coming from 3 different spots. Now you have Osa. You're going to have Overshown returning as a linebacker, who's one of the best blitzers and rushers as an inside linebacker. And then, of course, Micah, but also Sam Williams and Marshawn Nealon and Ezeraku. It's really going to have a chance, I think, if it hits, to be a generational type of pass rushing group is the absolute potential. And I think it's realistic to hit it.
Did you even say Fowler? Did you mention Fowler yet? You didn't even say that.
No, I didn't mention Fowler.
Say Solomon Thomas? Did you say now? And the thing is, pressure isn't always just about getting sacks. It's about affecting the quarterback's drop. It's about disruption. It's about blowing up, run plays when you're doing everything that you're supposed to do. It's not just about sacks. It's about pressures, hits, and disruption, creating dysfunction. And that's when he talks about getting upfield and turning dudes loose. Two things, opposite sides of the spectrum. He does a really great job of praising everyone else. He talks about the coaches that are here and the coaches who were here before. And he talks about how great they were even in years where they had troubles, and he qualifies those things with injuries and with talent. And he's the first guy to say that I got here, and yeah, DeMarcus Ware took off, and I got here, and yeah, we did some special things with guys like Sean Lee et al. But you need players, and you need them to be healthy. And he wants 5 or 6 guys inside. He wants 5 or 6 guys outside. Combination of linemen, linebackers, edge in this ever-changing hybrid world that we live in. And when you look at what he's going to have to rotate and play around, this is why when he says our separation will come from our preparation, or our preparation will be our separation, this is why Micah Parsons' availability is the most important thing to watch heading into training camp.
Yeah, it's tough, to be a coach and to try to create accountability for everybody and drop these seeds of your beliefs and try to hold people accountable. And then your best player, who's got all the talent in the world, doesn't want to totally buy into that. It can be difficult. I think what they at least emphasize publicly when talking about this and Micah is, while they're talking about your presence is great, they do seem to double down on believing that Micah can get himself ready in his own way. And you can talk about how it's not ideal, but he's still going to be one of the absolute best edges. You mentioned Sean Lee et al. I mean, there are some tremendous success stories. Not only Jalen Smith, who really made it beyond all odds. It was crazy the Cowboys ended up paying him considering the injury he was playing with and playing through. But, Bruce Carter, North Carolina, another guy drafted injured, became an incredible player. How about Rolando McClain, retired? Bama great, had significant issues with staying focused and staying present and not wanting to quit football. He just wanted to go fish, right? Did not really want to play, but he kept him engaged for like 2 years when Sean Lee was hurt. And the Cowboys had some really nice defenses as a result of how Eberflus helped tie together that linebacker room. Anthony Hitchens, a guy who was drafted in the 4th round, wasn't sure. Is Anthony Hitchens going to be a good linebacker? Kind of a different style of body, but man, he made that work as well. So, and that's really what this team has needed since he left, because they haven't prioritized spending on linebacker. The Cowboys like to draft the edge positions, corner, wide receiver, quarterback, and the sexy skill players, and they've ignored the trenches, especially on the defensive line and linebacker safety for too long. Eberflus is going to be a guy that can get a lot of this stuff fixed.
I mean, you got a hell of a checklist there. I mean, I think you got just about every name that matters to Cowboys country and Cowboys Nation, America's team, and all the hashtags. You got a player for every hashtag, basically. And you go back even before that to talk about dumpster fires, the end of Mangenius in Cleveland, right? As he browns out on Lake Erie, the David Bowens, he made that dude career high seasons. His age 32 year, I think he was a 5th round pick. And he had 2 pick sixes against Drew Brees on a team that had no reason to get up for that game, right? So you talk about him as a guy, defensive end, linebacker, inside versus outside, and all the different things in the scheme. Sean Lee moved, right? Jalen Smith moved. Like, those guys didn't just have success doing the thing they did that got them to the league, or the thing that they had success with originally in the league. They slotted and they shaped and molded around the emerging talents of other players. He's done a really nice job of transitioning from 3-4 to 4-3, molding 4-3 personnel to take advantage of accounting for injuries and making up for deficiencies, but also putting guys in the best position to become the best versions of themselves.
Yeah. And he is excellent at that. Again, I believe it's a blessing that he's come available at this point in his career. I think it's another Dan Quinn situation where within a couple of years, the Cowboys are going to have a really good defensive performance. They're going to have a lot of wins, and he's going to get another shot as a head coach. So take advantage of it while you can. By the way, if you've made it this far and haven't hit the like button, we sure would appreciate it. But we have cut 3 here from Matt Eberflus, Cowboys defensive coordinator, on with the Doomsday podcast. And here, let me see, how do I get that screen to share? There we go. Here we got him talking about last year, and as we transition to this year, why can this be different? The group that struggled so much last season, the first half of the season was historically bad. And he goes into this and shows respect to Mike Zimmer, who coached them and made them significantly better by the time we got to the end of the season. But the balance of the season makes this look like a steep challenge for Eberflus. Why does he have confidence this year can be different?
Here, through free agency, along the defensive line, at the linebacker level, and in the secondary level. And every group's different. You really have to restart and retie your shoes, relace up your shoes, as John Wooden would say, every single year. And we want to teach these guys and develop these guys. And we've done a nice job, but we got a lot of work to do. They have to do a lot of work in conditioning over these next 40 days before we touch them again. And then, the coaches got to keep developing their skill sets.
One of the interesting things this front office and coaching staff did in the offseason to improve the defense was acquire some former first-round draft choices on relatively inexpensive deals. And like Solomon Thomas, Peyton Turner, two defensive linemen, Kaiir Elam you got from Buffalo, and a trade another former first-round pick who's getting a lot of snaps with the number Dante Fowl pressure on you. And who are you expecting the most out of?
Well, I would say that the one about that entire group, I would say that veteran presence and to bring that to a young football team was outstanding by Will McClay. I mean, him and his group there do an excellent job, not only in the draft, but also with picking up guys like that. And, they really did a nice job with that. And to Shadi's credit, also, he really brought those the coaching staff and the scouting department even closer together. So the communication was excellent during that time.
So, he's talking more about conditioning stuff and the veterans they brought in making the difference for this team, New Bear. I think, it's clear that he likes the players but feels like they should be in better shape. But you have to go with the job that Will McClay did in the front office in free agency when it comes to, adding such a group of nice players. You lose Eric Kendricks at linebacker, but you get Sanborn and Murray. You mentioned Solomon Thomas and Peyton Turner, and the list goes on when you look at the amount of quality players they were able to add. And I guess that's the hope, is that your young players grow and that your veterans can seal up your gaps. But I think this has to be one of those defense where the pressure and the defensive line play is so good that it protects the back end.
You use the word nice to describe the collection of guys that they brought in. And there's a lot of nice to Eberflus. He's polite. He's cordial. He says all the right things. But he's also a dog, man. He's been called the most intense guy going back to his playing days, through his early coaching days. And he's got some swag, they call it demanding without demeaning, is the way that, going back to his hometown, people have described him. And you're talking about a guy who's been coached by, Nick Saban, come up through a laundry list of who's who of defensive coordinator personality types. And at the same time is one of those guys who, once upon a time when he was recruiting to upgrade the talent at Missouri, put a sign on a recruit's door that said, "Go home, nut," when he was in there knowing that Houston Nutt was coming back in to try to steal William Moore, Sean Weatherspoon, and some of those dudes where they had to upgrade the talent at Mizzou. And when I look back over his time, I think there's a ton of juxtaposition in his career. Think about when he's at Missouri. You can't get much more different than Brad Smith to Chase Daniel, than literally a guy who became a wide receiver in the NFL to a guy who invented the 5-wide, Tecmo Bowl on steroids Xbox offense, right, in Chase, and the way that they played at the end of his time at Mizzou. And you asked the question off the top of this about 2 out of 3 and what would you like to have if you're going to try to shut people down, right? And we talk about this guy getting these guys right over the next 40 days and then through the month of training camp into the season. The dog in him is going to come out, whether Micah's there day 1 or day 17, day whatever, right before the regular season starts. He's going to have all these other guys with their shit wired tight. Their laces, like he just said it, wired tight. Because he's a dude who's going to demand the very best of them. And the same way that we talk about Pickens being in a contract year where he's playing for his future, so is Mozzie Smith. The same way that, some of these corners coming back from injuries, eventually there's going to be a time where they're medically cleared and they got to put up or shut up. A guy like Kaiir Elam, this is his second chance. It also might be his last one, right? So there's a ton of motivating factors that are built into this situation for him to get in there and turn the volume up accordingly for each guy as you go from level to level and layer to layer across his defense.
Let me, try to put the conversation or the debate in a small box here, in a nice little contained package that you could react to, New Bear. What is fair to expect that's not a homer take, right, and not a hater take? What's fair to expect from this defense that had some great seasons and had stretches where they look like a top 5 defense under Dan Quinn? And then what's okay to hope for? You know, what do you think is possible the top end, considering Diggs and Overshown are going to miss a significant portion of the season?
Yeah, the health part of it, best ability is availability. I'm going to keep saying it, right? And, you know, Micah is a part of that conversation, even though he's going to be healthy. When does he show up, right? The simple thing when you look at him plugging in is I said earlier, the difference is impactful and it's immediate, right? And you look at the statistical resonance of the teams that he's taken over and improved, and it often happens right away in year 1. And if it doesn't happen in year 1, then he gets the dudes ramped up. They have a big off season. It happens in year 2. The question, quite frankly, when he's had problems is what's going on with the offense. Going back through the laundry list of problems with the Bears, you know, when you talk about an offense that can't do anything, that's not the expectation in Dallas. I think the two of those things playing together and playing off of one another, and then what might have to happen if Dak does suffer an injury and how you adjust with Joe Milton. The health factor becomes the biggest part of any of this stuff, whether you're doing it in counting stats or you're doing it in the best way to win a game, regardless of how ugly it might look. And I think as long as Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens et al. Are healthy and some of these other guys step up and the offense holds its weight and is a top 10 offense, then the hope is that you're mirroring that and you're a top 10 defense. The expectation should be at the very least middle of the pack, regardless of who's under center and regardless of who's available week to week for the offense. But then that hope becomes health and a translation of these two sides of the ball playing off of each other as an exact mirror.
Hell of a job, dude. Last night we went deep on Dak Prescott, the quarterback situation, being at a crossroads as his contract was named the second worst in the NFL. You can definitely get that in our YouTube library or where you find your podcast. Cold beer's coming up for you, New Bear. Back to back is tonight. Great stuff reacting to Matt Eberflus, Cowboys defensive coordinator. By the way, if you want a cold beer yourself, put beer me in the replies down below. We'll pour one for you. How's that sound, New Bear? You need cold beer right about now, don't you?
Oh, I love it. We got all kinds of great local stuff here, but you're supposed to be, we're going to figure out how to ship some stuff back and forth here until you get my ass down to the DFW.
I suppose. Back next week and tomorrow with more shorts and written words. You can track us on socials and read us at howboutwow.com.